Hi, it's me again. Sorry I didn't get my camera set up ahead of time. I was trying to decide what topic I wanted to talk about on the next video, and I got the answer to my question given to me in the form of other questions by a person who saw my video posted on Facebook. And he wrote in and asked several questions to me, which I think maybe other people have too. So I'm going to answer those questions, and hopefully it'll clear some things up. At the end of his questions, he did say, I could ask these questions all day long and we will likely not see eye to eye. I hope that's not the case. I really hope with more open conversations and with greater understanding about how the healthcare field really works and how the finances behind it work, that people will understand that universal healthcare is not an evil thing. And this is a doctor talking to you, somebody who stands to lose money, which leads me to the first question. It's actually a two-part question because he asks it twice. Would you take a pay cut to provide universal health care? And if you're willing to get paid less, and in parentheses he says, which will happen, we know that, will other physicians be willing to do the same? Well, I can't answer for other physicians, but I can answer for myself. Yes, I would be willing to take a pay cut. And here's why. Because I probably could afford to take a pay cut. Just like you, I need health care. Occasionally, I'm pretty healthy. I'm lucky. My family of 4 is pretty healthy. But I pay a premium of about $18,000 a year with a huge deductible, like $12,000. So right off the top, I wouldn't be paying $18,000 for our very expensive insurance. I'm in the individual market because I'm self-employed, which means when I go to get insurance from a health insurance company, I don't have a lot of negotiating power. I'm just one person, and they say, well, here's the rate, and you have to pay it. And in the state that I live in, there's only one insurance carrier, so that's pretty much my only choice. So yes, I'd save myself $18,000 right there. That would be great. Number 2, with universal health care would come a streamlining in our payment process so that instead of having to employ multiple people in a doctor's office, all of whom spend all day long tracking down the insurance companies, filling out the forms, filling them out again because you didn't do it right the first time, in essence, wasting manpower and time and money, you'd have one payer, the government. You'd have one form, the government's form. It would make it really easy. In addition, the government already requires doctors to have electronic medical records, but we all have different electronic medical record systems. The computerized system that I work on in my hospital is different than the one from the hospital 50 miles down the road, is different from the one in Vermont. And we waste a lot of healthcare dollars repeating unnecessary testing because we don't have access to those computerized records. It's estimated that 30% of your healthcare dollar is spent on unnecessary testing. If you were cynical, you'd say, well, the doctor's ordering those tests because he makes money off of it. I don't make any money off of it when I order an EKG for my patient so I can take them to the operating room. The cardiologist makes money off of it. I don't make money off of it. I just need to have that information so that I can deliver a safe anesthetic. But if I had a computerized system that I could access the EKG that you had 6 months ago, then I wouldn't have to repeat the test. But because we don't have a centralized computer system for the entire country, and because you had your EKG done at Dr. Jones's office last week, but it's Sunday morning and you need your appendix out and Dr. Jones isn't in his office, guess what? I have to repeat your EKG. So there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle that would make it so that I wouldn't have to charge so much money, and we wouldn't have to waste all these dollars on unnecessary tests. His second question, do you think the quality of medicine and instrumentation would change if everything was free? I can speak to the quality of the medicine, and what I can tell you, Brian, is that when physicians work fee for service, which is what we do right now, our activity is driven in part by the necessity of doing procedures so that we can make money. There have been multiple studies that show that as the number of certain types of physicians increases in a community, the number of procedures that that type of physician performs also goes up. Now, does that mean if there's, I don't know, 10 ophthalmologists doing cataract surgery, does it mean that all of a sudden everybody in that city has cataracts? No, it means that there's fewer patients to go around, and that you may unwittingly change your criteria for doing the surgery. I'm not saying that that's a conscious decision, but it's something that's been borne out time and again. You would think that competition would drive prices down, but competition actually doesn't drive the prices down. It drives them up because you have more people competing for the same number of fish in a pond. I can't speak to whether or not the quality of the instrumentation would change because I'm not in the instrumentation field. But my bet would be no. Is your continued education... Well, actually, let me go back to that. Would the universal health care create complacency? And I think by that, what you're asking is, if I didn't get paid for what I was doing, would it change what I do? Well, for me, I don't typically perform a wallet biopsy before I take care of a patient. I look at the patient, I look at what they need, and I make my decision made on what I think they need. What will best serve their interests? What's the safest thing for me to do for that patient? And I don't consider what their insurance payment is. That might make me unique, but I don't think it does. I have lots of physicians that I practice with, and I feel like we all practice the same way. But that's just my answer to that. Is your continued education supported by companies that sponsor such events? No. My continued education is paid for by me, and it's required by the medical board of the state that I practice in, so that I have to maintain my medical education, and I have to do it every year. And no, it's not paid for by anybody. So it would be great if it was, but it's not. But you can pitch in, Brian, if you want to. That'd be great. If the answer is no regarding whether or not you're willing to be paid less, will you be in the same place you're in now with the emergency rooms being backed up because there isn't enough money to pay the right people? Well, that really goes back to the video that I did about Billy going to the emergency room. Billy goes to the emergency room because he doesn't have enough money to go to his primary care doctor. So I think the answer is no. Even if I'm willing to take a pay cut, I think that if we had universal health care, meaning that everybody had the money to get into their primary care doctor's office, that our emergency rooms would be decompressed, which would be a good thing. Now, your last question was, give me one good example of where universal health care works in Western civilization. Well, I hope you don't mean by Western meaning like America, Canada, and that's all. Because that's kind of usually what most people mean when they say Western. So I'm just going to say, where does it work well? Well, here you go. I'm going to give you a list. Austria, Australia, Belgium, Canada, Chile, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Israel, Italy, Japan. We'll come back to Japan in just a minute. Luxembourg, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Poland, Portugal. I can't read these backwards. Slovenia, South Korea, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Turkey, UK, and right below UK would be USA, but we're not. Interestingly, back in 2000, the World Health Care Organization rated universal health care for all the countries around the world that provided universal health care with regards to dollars spent and fairness in delivery of the health care. Now we always go, USA, USA, we're number one, we're number one. Actually, we're number 37. 37. Right behind, I can't remember who the country was we were right behind. But, right behind Costa Rica, right ahead of Cuba. I don't think we're doing such a good job. But to give you a good example of how how one country manages it quite nicely. Japan has the oldest population in the world. And in Japan, the average number of visits to a doctor in a year is 14 compared to 5 for Americans. And the average expenditures for that care is $3,400 compared to $7,400 in America. So in America, where healthcare is 16% of our GDP as opposed to Japan, where it's about 8%, we spend a ton of money for very little return on investment. We don't get a lot of healthcare for what we spend. So here it is. You can look at that. That's just one example because that's what you asked for. All right. Any other questions? Feel free to send them to me. Otherwise, I'll keep figuring out what to say next. Okay. See ya.